At the beginning of the film, Tindaro reveals that he used to be a thief. Fearing punishment and dishonor, he decided to become an artist instead. He enjoys painting animals, nuns, and angels, but his life takes a turn when the plague arrives in Italy. Tindaro then shares the story of Lorenzo, who loses a card game to Gino. Following his loss, Lorenzo flees from Gerbino. Despite Gino's attempts to catch him, Lorenzo proves to be an adept escape artist, confidently declaring that Gino will never catch him. Lorenzo is in love with Pena, a wealthy but discerning girl. After losing a card game to Gerbino, Lorenzo's friends inform him that his house is now surrounded by Gino. Lorenzo then decides to leave the city. Meanwhile, Tindaro discovers that his priest has passed away, meaning he will no longer receive any money. He starts hearing voices in his head and contemplates becoming a priest himself, tempted by the wealth, power, and the allure of beautiful nuns that come with the position. The film then introduces Gerbino, whom Tindaro describes as looking like a stallion, though rumors suggest his virility is a thing of the past. Pena, now orphaned, is pressured to marry the Russian Count rgin. Gino claims that before his death, his father approved of Pena marrying him instead. Later, Lorenzo flees from Gino's guards on horseback. Along the way, he meets a worker who reveals he is transporting a body from the Bleeding Heart Monastery. The worker shares that it is the monastery's gardener, whose ultimate secret was being deaf and dumb. Lorenzo hides in a tree to evade the bandits, but he falls and loses consciousness. Four nuns find him and, believing him to be an angel sent from heaven, take him to the monastery. They discuss his appearance, admiring his beautiful lips and hair. One nun suggests undressing him to check for wounds. She lifts his shirt, kisses his stomach, and then proposes kissing his lips. Lorenzo, aware of everything, stays silent. When the Mother Superior arrives, the nuns tell her they believe Lorenzo is deaf and dumb. She is pleased, thinking they now have a new gardener, and suggests they send him for a bath. The nuns visit Lorenzo and engage in behavior that is very uncommon for them. Later, Pena invites her friends to her wedding. Fila boasts about her innocence, prompting Alyssa to remark that not everyone is as innocent as Fila thinks. They discuss Pam's love for Lorenzo, and Gino overhears them. Enraged, he threatens her friends, which Tindaro also hears. Once again, Tindaro hears voices in his head and confronts Gerbino, asking him to leave the holy place. Gerbino wants to punish Tindaro for his rudeness, but Tindaro shocks himself by asking when Gino last confessed. This encounter solidifies Tindaro's decision to become a priest. Fila arranges a carriage for their trip to the wedding. When Alyssa inquires about it, Fila explains that it belongs to her uncle Bruno. Though not very smart, Bruno is notably innocent and prides himself on maintaining his purity. Alyssa then mentions that Tindaro will be their priest. Pampon arrives at the monastery to preserve her virginity. Unaware of her surroundings, Count D. Serinsky arrives and mistakes Gerbino for Pamp's father. Gerbino rudely corrects him, claiming to be Pamp's future husband. They exchange threats, forcing the Count to leave the castle. The Count meets the pastor, who tells him that Pamp will be waiting for him at the country villa and hands him a letter from her. Meanwhile, two nuns approach Lorenzo, asking him to give them the same attention he gave to the other nuns. They begin to undress, and Lorenzo happily complies. At the same time, Tindaro departs with Bruno. Tindaro complains about Bruno's tendency to spoil the air, while Fila once again boasts about her virginity. Fila talks about her friend Diono, who is supposedly also innocent, though Alyssa notes he has been acting strangely lately. Later, Diono and his friends see two girls beckoning to them. Dio tells his friend to ask what they want. The girls offer them milk and bread, leading the boys to chase them to a barn. Inside, the girls show them a cow, claiming it is the source of the milk. Fila hears the commotion from the barn. When she enters, she sees the boys and girls doing something, but not milking the cow. On this day, the nuns, along with Pena, visit Lorenzo to give him some water. However, when Pena does this, she pours water over his head and tells him to drown. Later, Father Tindaro decides to leave Filomena. He advises her that there's nothing wrong with a kiss, and then departs. The next day, Pamp visits Lorenzo again. She blindfolds him, confesses that she dreams about him, and kisses him, then departs. Meanwhile, Dio goes to the forest and Fila follows him. She comforts him, kisses him lightly, and tells him that he will soon get what he wants from her. She continues to kiss him repeatedly, but suddenly Diono starts to twitch. At this moment, bandits appear and take them captive. That evening, the bandit leader approaches the girls and invites them to work for him. Alyssa comments on his handsomeness and passion, proposing a cunning solution. She goes to the leader's room and begins to dance for him. When she returns, she reports that it was boring. He only wanted her to dance and nothing more. The girls then devise a plan to steal the key from the bandits. They trick the bandits into taking off their pants, which leads to a fight breaking out. During the chaos, the girls' men manage to escape. As they flee, they encounter the bandit leader. However, Bruno intervenes and eliminates him, ensuring their safety. The next day, Pampon needs to leave the monastery but doesn't want to leave Lorenzo in the hands of the nuns. She tells Mother Nun that she heard Lorenzo singing in the garden and that he has a very pleasant voice. Then she leaves. The Mother Nun visits the sleeping Lorenzo and whispers in his ear that the butcher has come to take out his tongue. Startled, he jumps up and apologizes, but she chases him out of the monastery. Meanwhile, Count Dzinski escapes from Gino's men. He reaches a waterfall to drink and notices Alyssa floating in the water. Surprised, he tries to determine if she is a sorceress. The Count introduces himself and remarks that if she is not Pania, it will be a miracle, as she is the most beautiful girl in the world. Alyssa emerges from the water and they kiss. Pania passes the monastery and meets Lorenzo. She tells him she is going to her wedding, and Lorenzo decides to accompany her. Meanwhile, Tindaro approaches the monastery, commenting on the incomparable passion of the woman within. He meets her and declares his intention to serve and pray. She takes him into a room and suggests they do some unusual things. As Lorenzo and Pania walk together, Lorenzo confesses that he is in love with the girl who kissed him and can't forget her. Pamp offers to refresh his memory, but at that moment, Gerbino arrives and attacks Lorenzo. Pania intervenes, declaring that if Gerbino harms Lorenzo, she will never marry him. She proposes a condition: she will marry Gerbino only if he lets Lorenzo go. Gerbino agrees to Pamp's condition and announces that the wedding will happen soon. Meanwhile, Tindaro arrives at the castle. Pampina asks him to stall for time before the wedding. Lorenzo, escorted by the guards to the forest, learns that Gerbino has ordered his execution. Though reluctant at first, Lorenzo eventually eliminates both guards. He then encounters Count Dzinski, who is also headed to Pamp. Back at the castle, Tindaro stretches out the wedding preparations as long as possible, slowly pouring wine for the guests to taste. Gino, growing impatient, threatens Tindaro, who then declares that they are already married. At this moment, the Count arrives and shoots at Gerbino. Lorenzo also arrives and takes Pania with him. A fight ensues between the Count and Gerbino, but Lorenzo intervenes. The Count warns that if he kills Gerbino, he will also have to kill Lorenzo. They decide to settle the matter by tossing a coin, and Lorenzo wins. Gino hesitates to approach the well, but the Count pushes him toward it. As they fight, Lorenzo offers Gerbino a choice. He might survive if he jumps into the deep well. Instead, Gerbino attacks Lorenzo and ends up falling into the well himself. The Count praises Lorenzo, but nearly pushes him into the abyss. Just then, Pania arrives, and the Count asks her to marry him. At this moment, Alyssa appears, the one he truly loves. Pania runs after Lorenzo and kisses him, and he remembers that she was the one who kissed him in the monastery. A wedding ensues, and everyone kisses. Tindaro announces that he is returning to the monastery, where the angel on whom he left his painting is waiting for him. And that's the end of the story.